And welcome to Decision 2025. Today is Election Day all across the Commonwealth, and a top voter issue always is the economy. And joining us in the studio today to talk about issues affecting your pocket, we have Dr. Jennifer Kohn. She's an adjunct professor of economics at Lynchburg University and also a small business owner, right? You have a flower farm.
I have a flower farm, the Little Otter Flower Farm.
Okay, so there you go. So let's talk about tariffs.
Sure.
Of course, everybody looks at the national economy. President Trump has been playing all sorts of, I'm starting to say tariff dodgeball, but why not? Raising and lowering tariffs and having all these meetings and doing all the things with tariffs. But it does affect Virginia, doesn't it?
It affects Virginia tremendously in a number of different ways. And it's going to be years before we know the actual impact of tariffs. But what we do know is that trade is down in Virginia, and the volume at the Port of Virginia is down nearly 10% from last year. And that affects our economy tremendously.
This part of the state, we don't think of the Port of Virginia, but maybe we should.
We don't think about the Port of Virginia, but this part of the state, southwestern Virginia, gets a lot of resources from the whole state, and a lot of those resources are developed in the eastern part of the state, which is not only hit by tariffs, but also hit by the government cutbacks around the DC area.
Okay, let's talk about another big issue, and that's immigration, right? And you got immigration on several fronts. You got shutting down the border. You've got the ICE roundups. You've got the removal of what's essentially inexpensive labor for manufacturing. I think of the Boar's Head raid, and also migrant workers who are working the various farms on the eastern shore, and I assume this part of Virginia as well. So you've got all kinds of different immigration issues. How do you think that impacts the economy and Virginians?
Again, there are so many big issues buffeting our economy: tariffs, immigration, government, AI. And there's such a gap between theory and practice, because in theory, we hold everything else constant. The problem is that immigration is interacting with tariffs, is interacting with government, is interacting with the AI. The one thing we know for sure there's tremendous uncertainty, and uncertainty is bad for business.
I think that's the only thing that I could say if I was an observer of the scene right now is I've heard arguments on both sides of tariffs, for instance. And of course, there are clearly two sides to immigration, shutting down all the different things that I just mentioned. But how do you think that's going to roll out in terms of voters? If you're not happy with what's going on, do you just vote Democrat right now, or what do you do?
I hope you vote.
Okay.
Right? Whatever you do, I hope you vote.
Right.
And I think you need to vote for the party that you think has a plan that's going to reduce the uncertainty. Again, there's arguments on both sides,
right,
and we're not going to know how it's going to play out. But the uncertainty in the way things are being rolled out is definitely problematic, both for the larger economy and for everybody's individual economy.
Let's talk about something else that we don't have a firm handle on in terms of uncertainty. We're talking about AI, right? I've heard arguments that it's costing us jobs because businesses don't need those employees anymore because, look, AI can do it. And then I've heard other people who say that they're very enlightened because, well, look, we've always had advances in technology, and that's just created new jobs.
Sure.
So, and AI also has kind of a hidden environmental cost as well, right?
Well, and actually one of the costs that isn't talked about a lot is all of the investment going into AI that's really sucking up all the capital that might otherwise go to other parts of our economy. The amount of money being put into building AI infrastructure is absolutely mind-boggling. It is the only thing propping up the stock market right now. And while the jobs and the technology and all of this is far in the future, the financial bubble is now.
So is there a party that is particularly aligned with AI as we're here on Election Day and we're talking about it?
Well, certainly in terms of the environmental impact,
right,
I think you'd have to say that the Democrats are more attuned to the environmental impact.
And the use of water in particular.
The use of water, the drain on the electricity grid. And we've all been experiencing, particularly in this part of the state, increasing electricity rates.
Right.
In terms of regulation, again, it's hard to know where the puck is going. So I'm not
Really
sure I would give high marks to either party for knowing how to regulate AI, although just the general desire to have the public have more of a voice in the development of AI is, I would think, more of a Democratic priority.
So maybe who navigates it the best going forward? Who do you think will navigate it the best going forward? Because it's going to be with us no matter what.
Well,
right?
and representation.
Right. Okay.
And who the parties are listening to in terms of the impacts on just everyday people over their kitchen table.
Okay, and then meanwhile we've got the government shutdown.
Sure.
Right, and then we've had the Doge layoffs in Northern Virginia, which has hurt, all the people in Virginia who work in government jobs. So they're telling me we're almost out of time, but
well, the big number.
How do you think people vote on this?
The big number in the Virginia economy is last year we were growing at over 6%, and this year we're growing at under 2%. And so with all the unknowns, that's known, and it, I think, is very difficult not to hold the current administration accountable for that decline in growth.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll be back with more right after this.